"I don't want you climbing anymore," David said one morning, out of nowhere. I froze, halfway through lacing my boots. "You're not 25. It's time to think about kids." His words landed like a rock slide, unexpected, heavy, and impossible to ignore. I looked up at him, still holding my climbing harness, and tried to read his face. There wasn't anger there, not exactly. Just that calm, patronizing tone he always used when repeating something his mother had said. Elaine had planted the seed. David was only giving it water. That morning was supposed to be a good one. We had just bought tickets to Nepal for the fall. I was leading a kids group at the climbing center that afternoon, and we were planning to celebrate 5 years of marriage that weekend. I had even dyed my hair a new copper shade, bold, bright, and completely me. "You liked this color yesterday," I said carefully. "I still do," he murmured, "but maybe it's time we grew up a little." I laughed it off and kissed his cheek before heading out, but the words followed me all the way to the gym, clinging to me like sweat. Climbing had always been my freedom. Even as a child, I hated being still. I was the girl who scraped her knees and tore her jeans and never sat down when told. Now, in my 30s, I had turned that passion into a career. I ran weekend classes for kids, team-building workshops for adults, and had just helped design a new safety system that made national certification. I wasn't just passionate, I was good, and I loved it. Our apartment in Portland reflected our life. Sunlight streaming through big windows, trekking boots in the hallway, a giant map above the bed with red pins for places we'd been and blue for places we still dreamed of. Nepal had 3 blues. I had circled them in pen. That Saturday, I was prepping our signature weekend lunch, vegetable curry with too much ginger, when the doorbell rang. "Can you get that?" I called to David. I was elbow deep in turmeric and laughter. When I turned around, I saw not just our friend Rachel, but also Elaine, standing in the doorway in a beige suit and her usual judgment. I was in the area," she said briskly. "Thought I'd drop by." Without waiting for an invitation, she stepped inside and scanned our apartment with the cold eye of a home stager. Rachel gave me a sheepish smile. I didn't know she was coming. "It's fine," I said, though the knot in my stomach said otherwise. Over lunch, Elaine criticized everything. My cooking, too spicy, my climbing, dangerous, my career, when will you have real responsibilities? When I mentioned our Nepal trip, she pursed her lips. "You're not getting any younger, Julia. It's time to think about a family." I tried to stay calm. "We have a plan, Elaine. Nepal in the fall, maybe kids next year." She gave David a look, the kind that didn't need words. I saw the way he shifted uncomfortably, the way he didn't defend me. "You've got too many mountains on your list and not enough sense of time," she muttered under her breath, slicing her naan bread like it had personally offended her. Later that night, I sat with David on the couch, our knees touching, the TV glowing softly. "She doesn't think I'll ever give you children," I said. He sighed. "She's from another time. For her, a woman's worth is domestic." I nodded slowly. "You don't believe that, right?" "Of course not," he said, kissing the top of my head. But even then, I wasn't sure if he said it for me or for himself. 2 days later, at the climbing gym, a new father joined our adult class. Nervous, stiff, out of shape. I clipped him in and smiled. "You'll be fine. Most of climbing is just trusting the rope." The class was going well, laughter echoing through the high ceilings, music playing in the background. One of the girls shouted down to me, "Coach Julia, watch this." That's when it happened. A sound, small and sharp, like a zipper tearing open. The rope snapped, not fully, but enough. The man lost his footing. I saw it all happen in slow motion. His body falling, spinning. I moved without thinking. Lunged forward. Caught the rope. Tried to break the fall. But 240 pounds hit me like a freight train. And then everything went black. I woke up to a ceiling I didn't recognize and pain that didn't belong to anything I'd felt before. It wasn't sharp, not exactly. It was hollow, like something inside me had gone missing. My mouth was dry. My fingers were cold. Machines beeped softly around me. The lights were too bright. Someone held my hand, warm and trembling. "Julia!" a voice whispered. It was David. I turned my head, slowly, like dragging a stone through water. His face was pale, his eyes rimmed with red. "You're awake. Thank God you're awake." I tried to speak, but my throat burned. He poured water into a straw and lifted my head gently. "Don't try to talk. Just rest. You've been out for 2 days." I blinked at him, trying to anchor myself in time. What happened? I finally croaked. His face twisted, like he didn't want to say it out loud. "You took the fall for someone. A student lost his grip, you stepped in. You saved him. But you didn't land well." He hesitated. "Spinal injury. T8 and T9. They're saying it's serious, that mobility may be compromised." I didn't understand, not fully. Compromised? Like what? I wouldn't walk for a few weeks? Use a cane? Then the doctor came in with charts and x-rays, and suddenly the word paralysis hung in the air like a storm cloud. Permanent. Maybe. They didn't know. They always say that. "Too early to tell," they said. "Depends on how your body responds." But in their eyes, I saw the truth. Elaine showed up the next day, perfectly put together, like she was attending a charity event instead of visiting her paralyzed daughter-in-law. She brought a basket of oranges and a stack of lifestyle magazines. "I told you," she said softly to David while she thought I was asleep. "That climbing nonsense would end in disaster." She looked at me like I was already gone. "And now, she won't just not give you children. She'll need to be cared for like one." David said nothing. He just stood there, jaw tight, eyes on the floor. I wanted to scream, to throw the basket at her, but I couldn't move, not even my legs. That truth sank in quietly like a fog settling in my bones. The hospital room became my new world. Every beep, every injection, every test reminded me of what I had lost. I wasn't a climber. I wasn't a coach. I was a patient, a burden. David visited every day. He brought me books, playlists, updates from the outside. He tried to smile, but it looked like effort. I watched the light in him dim, one visit at a time. It wasn't his fault. He didn't ask for this. Neither did I, but here we were. I asked one of the nurses to bring in a whiteboard. I drew a mountain on it, Everest, crudely outlined. Then a line under it, flat, unmoving. "This is me now," I said when David came in. He tried to laugh. "No, it's just a different climb." But he didn't believe it, and neither did I. Physical therapy started a week later. They tried to move my legs. I couldn't feel a thing. The therapist smiled too much, like overcompensating for the silence between her words. "You're strong," she said. "You're athletic. That gives you an edge." I smiled back, but I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was being erased one layer at a time. One night, I asked David to play our old playlist, the one we used to hike with. He sat beside me, earbuds in, and Sweet Disposition started playing. I used to sing that song out loud on cliffsides with the wind in my face and dirt on my palms. Now, I just stared at the ceiling, feeling like that version of me had died. "I miss her," I whispered. "Who?" he asked. "The woman I used to be." David didn't respond. He squeezed my hand, but his eyes stayed fixed on the floor. That was the first time I saw the wall forming between us. Invisible, but solid and growing. They brought me home on a Wednesday. Not the same home I remembered, though. Our bright little apartment in Portland, once full of climbing gear and cooking smells and music, had been gutted. The queen-sized bed was gone, replaced by a hospital bed with metal rails and a motorized remote. Tubes, medications, feeding supplements, sterile gloves. There was a commode chair in the corner and a lift device parked by the window. The carpet had been ripped up to make way for the wheels. David had done it all. He'd turned our home into a clinic, and I hated it. The first night, he tried to be upbeat. "We'll get you back on your feet. Just you wait," he said, fluffing my pillow. "This is just the middle chapter." I nodded, but I couldn't meet his eyes. He didn't know what it was like to feel your body but not command it, to lie in bed and need help for the smallest, most humiliating things, to wake up drenched in sweat, unable to move, and too proud to cry. He brought me tea in the mornings, adjusted my catheter, learned how to inject meds into the port on my abdomen. I saw him watching videos on how to prevent bed sores, how to do passive stretches for paralyzed legs. He wanted to help. He really did. But with every day that passed, I could feel him breaking. His eyes were ringed with exhaustion. His voice was quieter, more distracted. He didn't laugh anymore, not even at the jokes I made just to cut the silence. He started taking work calls again, then stayed in his office longer. Sometimes he'd sit in the dark, staring at his old architectural drafts, untouched for weeks. I wanted to reach for him, to say, "We're still us." But I wasn't sure if that was true anymore. Elaine came by often, too often, always uninvited, always bringing comments, wrapped in pity. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she'd ask David, stroking his arm like I wasn't even there. "You're so strong to do this for her." Then she'd glance at me and sigh. "I've been looking into some care facilities just in case. Somewhere professional with trained staff." I smiled through my teeth. "I'm right here, Elaine." "I know, dear," she replied sweetly, "but David needs rest too. You wouldn't want him to burn out, would you?" I wanted to scream, but all I could do was blink. Rachel came by less and less. She was busy, she said. Work was overwhelming. But I knew. I felt the shift. When she did come, she hovered awkwardly, eyes darting between me and David, bringing meals I couldn't chew and flowers I couldn't smell. I thanked her anyway. Some nights, when the painkillers made me drowsy and the room spun with soft hallucinations, I'd hear David on the balcony, whispering into the phone. His voice was low, tight with guilt. I never asked who he was talking to. I didn't want to know. Or maybe I already knew. One night, as he helped adjust my position, I caught his face in the dim lamplight. Hollow cheeks, bloodshot eyes. "You need sleep," I whispered. "You're fading." "I'm fine," he lied. "You're not." He sat beside me, exhaling slowly. "I don't know how to do this, Julia. I love you, but this isn't a life." There it was, the thing I'd been fearing and expecting. "I don't blame you," I said softly, "but please don't pretend. Not with me." He took my hand and kissed it. "We'll figure it out. Maybe we should consider some kind of temporary care, just until you're stronger." "I'm not getting stronger," I said. My voice didn't shake. He looked away. "Let's just talk about it later." But we didn't, because deep down we both knew. Later was already here. I started noticing the absences. Not the big ones. David still came home every night, still brought my meds, still lifted me into my wheelchair each morning. But the small ones, the quiet, vanishing acts. The way he stopped talking during meals. The way his kisses became more like habits than feelings. The way he'd sit beside me but never touch my hand unless I asked. Then came the night I really knew. I had fallen asleep early, exhausted from another session with the home nurse. Around midnight, I woke with a dry throat and reached for the bell, but the hallway light was already on. I heard whispers in the kitchen. I moved as quietly as I could, inching my wheelchair toward the doorway. It was David and Rachel. They weren't touching, but they didn't need to be. Their voices were low, intimate. He was telling her how tired he was, how scared. She murmured something back I couldn't hear. Then he said, "When I'm with you, I can breathe." I backed away before I heard more. The next morning, he brought me breakfast. French toast, slightly burnt, just the way I liked it. I stared at the tray. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. I didn't answer. I looked at the toast, then at him. "You should tell me." He blinked. "Tell you what?" "That it's too much. That I'm too much. That you want out." His shoulders sank. He didn't deny it. He just sat down beside the bed and rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't know how to say it, Julia. I feel like I'm drowning. I nodded. Me too. There was no shouting, no crying, just a slow silence settling in between us like fog. Elaine told me about a place, he finally said. Clearbrook Manor. It's a care facility just outside the city. It's clean, safe, has professional staff. They can help you in ways I can't. You mean you won't? He didn't argue. I'm not angry, I said, surprising even myself. I'm just tired of watching you disappear by inches. He reached for my hand. It's temporary, just until I can breathe again, until we figure things out. I looked down at our hands. When someone says temporary, they usually mean forever. They just can't admit it yet. That night, he packed a small bag for me. I watched from the bed as he folded my shirts, the same ones I used to wear to the climbing gym, the same ones that still smelled faintly of chalk and sun. Rachel came by to say goodbye. She brought flowers again, tulips this time. They'll look nice by the window, she said. I didn't ask which window. I didn't ask if she'd be there when David came home. The ambulance came at noon. David rode with me, held my hand the whole time. When we reached Clearbrook, he wheeled me through the lobby, kissed my forehead, and said he'd be back tomorrow. But tomorrow came and went, and he didn't. The room they gave me was small, sterile. The walls were yellowing. There was a leak in the ceiling that stained the plaster in the shape of a broken heart. No art, no windows facing the sun, just the humming of machines and the echo of footsteps in the hallway. The nurse who checked me in, Valerie, was kind in a distracted sort of way. She adjusted my bed and said, "Don't worry, honey. You'll settle in soon." I smiled weakly, but inside something had cracked. That first night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, tracing the cracks with my eyes, trying to imagine they were mountain ridges. I imagined summits, glaciers, clouds. I tried to breathe in the air of the Himalayas, but all I smelled was bleach. Days blurred. In Clearbrook Manor, time had no texture. The air was thick with antiseptic and something heavier, something like surrender. The food tasted like nothing. The lights flickered at night. The hallway outside my room echoed with coughs, the shuffle of slippers, the slow click of metal walkers. I had become one of them, one of the people who had been set aside. David called it first. Short, tired conversations. How are they treating you? Have you been outside? I'll try to visit this weekend. But the visits never came. The weekends filled with empty promises and excuses. Work is insane right now. I've got a deadline. Next week, I promise. Next week never came. Rachel stopped calling altogether. I tried to be strong. I did my physical therapy. I listened to the nurses. I smiled when spoken to. But inside, I felt myself dissolving. Then came the rash. It started on my arms, red, angry patches. I told Nurse Valerie. She barely looked up from her chart. Probably the laundry soap. The hospital-grade stuff's harsh. She handed me a cream that burned more than it soothed. Let me know if it spreads. It did. By the end of the week, it had crept to my neck and back. I couldn't sleep. The itching was unbearable. The nurse on night shift muttered something about allergic reaction, but made no move to change the bedding or the soap or anything. One night, unable to bear it, I reached into the drawer beside my bed and pulled out the photo I had brought with me, the one of David and me on Mount Hood, grinning at the summit, cheeks red from the cold, arms wrapped around each other. We looked so alive, so invincible. Now, that girl might as well have been a ghost. I don't know what broke me more, the silence from David or the silence inside myself. I didn't even cry anymore. I just existed, like a placeholder in a broken system. Then something shifted. A new doctor arrived. He came in quietly late one morning with a worn leather notebook and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Julia Carter," he asked, checking the name on my chart. "I'm Dr. Ethan Blake. I'm the new neurorehabilitation specialist here. I've reviewed your file," and he paused, then looked directly at me. "I think there's more we can try. I stared at him. More what? Rehabilitation. Advanced methods. Not miracle cures, but effort. Real effort. I'd like to evaluate your reflex responses again. The original notes suggest partial compression, not full severance. I blinked. Everyone said this was it, that I'd never move again. Everyone was wrong, he said simply. It happens. He examined my legs, ran a few tests, scribbled something in his notebook. You still have deep tissue response. That's something. It means the signal's not entirely gone, just quiet. We can work with that. I didn't believe him, but I let him talk. Later that day he came back. Would you be open to some unofficial sessions? He asked, his voice low. The staff here is limited, but I've worked in advanced facilities. I can do better than what you've been given. I didn't answer right away. Then, finally, yes. That night, for the first time in weeks, I didn't stare at the ceiling. I stared at my toes, willing them to move. They didn't, but something inside me did. It wasn't hope, not yet. Hope was too fragile, too dangerous. But it was something close. A crack in the wall. A light, barely there. But enough. Dr. Ethan Blake didn't talk to me like I was broken. That alone made him different. He came every afternoon after rounds, still wearing his white coat, sleeves rolled up, notebook in hand. He never knocked, just appeared with a soft, "Hey, Julia," like we were old friends picking up a conversation from yesterday. He asked questions no one else had bothered with. What foods I missed. What songs I used to sing in the car. What I saw when I closed my eyes at night. I told him about the mountains. The feeling of being halfway up a cliff with wind in my face and nothing below but air and silence. I didn't cry when I talked to him. Somehow he made me feel like that girl, the one who could scale granite with her bare hands, was still somewhere in here, waiting. The physical work started slowly. He showed me exercises that looked like nothing. Toe curls, breath pacing, visualizing movement as if I were doing it. Neuroplasticity isn't magic, he said, but it's stubborn. Like you. He brought in a therapist from another clinic. Quiet woman named Marta. She brought resistance bands, soft ankle weights, music from the 80s. For the first time in months, I heard someone laugh in my room. Some days, nothing changed. No twitches, no shifts, no progress. But then, one morning, I felt a faint tingle in my right foot. I stared at it for 5 full minutes before hitting the call button. Valerie came in annoyed. What's wrong? I felt something, I said. She looked unconvinced. Probably just nerve confusion. Phantom sensation happens. But Ethan believed me. He checked my response, ran tests, smiled for real this time. It's not a ghost signal. It's real. Something bloomed in my chest then. Not hope, not yet, but breath. I hadn't realized how long I'd been holding mine. We didn't tell anyone at first. It was our secret, a flicker in a dark tunnel. I worked harder. I let them stretch my limbs even when it hurt. I listened to Ethan talk about nerve bridges and alternate pathways like it was poetry. In those weeks, something else happened. We became friends. Real friends. He told me about his daughter, Lily, 5 years old, obsessed with planets and jellyfish. He showed me a photo of her in a sparkly astronaut costume. His face softened every time he mentioned her. I asked if he was married. He said no. It didn't work out. That's all he said. I didn't push. I told him about David. Not everything. Just enough. He didn't comment. He didn't pity me. He just listened. One day, during therapy, I managed to flex my toes. Just for a second. Just the right foot. Marta gasped. Ethan grinned. And I cried. Really cried. Because it was real. Because I was still here. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling like always. But this time, I wasn't tracing the cracks. I was planning, rebuilding, choosing. I whispered into the dark, I'm not done. And for the first time, I believed it. It started with a writing exercise. Ethan said it might help. Put down everything you feel. Don't censor it. Don't try to make it polite. He handed me a journal with a navy blue cover. Write like no one's going to read it. So I did. I wrote about rage. Not just at David, but at everything. The accident. The silence. The nurses who forgot to change my sheets. The way people looked at me like I was already dead. The way I had started to believe them. Then I wrote about David. The boy who once danced with me barefoot in the rain, who memorized every muscle in my back so he could rub the knots out after long climbs, who told me I made him brave. And then the man who left. I didn't hold back. I told the truth, that his absence hurt more than the paralysis, that every time I heard his voice in my head, I wanted to scream, that I hated Rachel more for pretending than for the betrayal itself, that I hated myself for missing him even now. When I finished, I closed the journal and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. That should have been the end of it. Just ink on paper. Just a purge. But 3 days later, I found the letter folded neatly on my bedside tray. The last page of the journal. Typed out. Signed, Julia. Valerie looked sheepish. I found it while changing your linens. I thought maybe it should be read. I stared at her, stunned. You sent this. No, but I left it out. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Embarrassment? Relief? That night, I called Ethan into the room, showed him the letter. He read it quietly, eyes scanning every word, his jaw tight. When he finished, he looked up. It's good. It wasn't meant to be sent. I know, but it should have been. I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. Then, one Thursday morning, a familiar knock came to the door, and there he was, David. His face looked older, thinner. His hair had more gray at the temples, but it was him. He didn't smile, just stood there, holding a small bouquet of grocery store tulips and a folded piece of paper. Can I come in? I nodded. He sat down at the foot of the bed like it was made of glass. I read it, the letter. I said nothing. He took a breath. I was a coward. I know that. I wanted to be strong for you, but I wasn't even strong for myself. Rachel, that was a mistake. All of it. I looked at him carefully. Why are you here? Because I miss you. Because I hate what I did. Because I read that letter and realized I didn't lose you the day of the accident. I lost you the day I stopped trying. Silence fell between us, like a blanket. Finally I spoke. Do you want to fix this? He nodded. If you'll let me. I looked out the window. A bird landed on the ledge, then flew away. I'm not the same woman you left, I said softly. And I won't ever be. I know. I turned back to him. Then don't ask me to come back. Don't ask me to fit into that old version of us. It's gone. He looked wounded. Then what do I do? I handed him the journal. You start here. You read everything. And then maybe you build something new. He held it like it might burn him, but he nodded. And then he left. No promises. No pleas. Just a man holding a truth he had refused to face until now. The first time I stood again, it wasn't dramatic. There was no applause. No swelling music. Just a quiet afternoon in the therapy room. Marta holding a gate belt around my waist. Ethan crouched nearby, watching every muscle in my legs for signs of life. Whenever you're ready, Marta said gently. I closed my eyes, took a breath, pushed down into my heels, and something shifted. My right knee locked, then trembled. My core screamed. My arms gripped the bars until my knuckles went white. But I stood, only for 5 seconds. But I stood. When I sat back down, I wasn't crying. I was laughing, shaking, sweating, laughing like I'd just conquered Everest. Because, in a way, I had. We took it slow from there, step by painful step, muscles reawakening like forgotten seeds under snow. Ethan adjusted my therapy every week. Marta cheered over every inch of forward movement. I fell once, hurt my hip, cried from frustration. But the next day I got back up and walked again. By spring, I could make it from my bed to the window with a walker. By summer, I could cross the garden path with a cane. And one morning, 6 months after the day David left me at Clearbrook, I stood on the front lawn with Ethan and Marta beside me, the sun pouring over my shoulders, and I whispered, "I'm ready." They didn't ask what I meant. They just smiled. I left Clearbrook that afternoon. No one clapped. No farewell party. Just Valerie handing me my discharge papers and muttering, "Didn't think you'd make it." I didn't answer, because I didn't need her to believe in me. I already did. Ethan offered to drive me home. I said yes. He helped load my bags. Quiet, respectful. When we reached the city, he pulled into the lot of a small, second-story walk-up. "This is mine," I told him. "I signed the lease last week." He looked impressed. "No elevators?" "Nope." Stubborn. Always. He carried my things inside, set them gently down, looked around the bare apartment with its blank walls and dusty floors. "It's a good start," he said. "It's mine," I replied. "Every inch of it." Before he left, he paused at the door. "If you ever want company, I'll call you," I said. He nodded, and then, like always, he didn't look away. I spent that first night alone. No machines humming, no nurses checking vitals, just me, and silence, and strength. The next morning, I brewed coffee, took 3 slow steps toward the window, and opened the blinds. The sun flooded in. My legs ached. My spine protested. But I was standing, barefoot on a new floor in a new life. I wasn't the girl I had been, but I was someone better. Not unbroken, but rebuilt. I didn't plan to see David again. Not out of bitterness. I had made peace with that chapter. But some stories demand a proper ending. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at the community center for a wellness talk Ethan had recommended. Afterward, I wandered into the cafe across the street. I ordered a coffee, black, no sugar, and turned to find a seat. And there he was, sitting by the window, alone. David. He looked up, and for a second he didn't recognize me. I wasn't in a chair anymore. I wasn't pale or frail. I wasn't small. I was standing tall, walking slowly but confidently, with a polished cane in my hand and sunlight on my shoulders. His face froze. "Julia," he said, voice breaking a little. I nodded. David." He stood, knocking his drink slightly. "You look incredible." "I feel incredible." He didn't know what to do with his hands. "I didn't expect, I know," I said gently. He glanced down at my cane. "You walked in here." "I've walked into a lot of places since Clearbrook." He smiled awkwardly. "I've been following your progress. Ethan mentioned you'd left." I raised an eyebrow. "You still talk to him?" "Not often, but enough to know I'm not the hero in your story." I didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "You were once. Just not at the end." He nodded, shame tightening his jaw. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know I think about it every day." I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't the man who had abandoned me in that sterile room, or the boy who once carried me up a snowy ridge. He was just a man, human, flawed, regretful, and I no longer needed his apology to move on. "I forgave you," I said. He blinked. "You did?" "Yes, not for you, for me." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. "Thank you." We stood there for a moment, 2 people tethered by memory but no longer by pain. I reached into my bag and pulled out a photo, me standing at the summit of Angel's Landing, arms wide open, the canyon behind me glowing with golden light. I handed it to him. "I thought you should see this." He stared at it for a long time. "That's incredible," he whispered. "It's real," I said. "Every part of it." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "You did it." "No," I said, stepping back. "I'm still doing it." And then I turned and walked away, out the door, into the sunlight, not looking back, because the story wasn't about what I lost. It was about what I rebuilt.